the duct. Just rough understanding, okay? And I can use green to show you the part of the jejunum where I'm actually going to make an opening, but I'm not yet making it, okay? You know, the trouble with pancreas would be it'll try to, it's kind of glandular, so, and plus vascular, so it tends to bleed a lot. There is a capsule, and then there is this duct. So, except for the duct and the capsule, the bite has no meaning. You should not put it anywhere else because it won't be holding. So this is the capsule, and that's a duct. Putting a suture here across is going to be a wasted effort, plus it will bleed. There's no point. So that's the capsule. Now, you were asking me about boxing sutures. I'll tell you in context, otherwise you won't understand. So, if it is not a dilated duct, some people like to use Shane's dissector or a dilator, or we have used a mosquito. Just put it inside and it can be dilated. And ideal diameter should be more than 6 millimeters, but 4 to 6 is okay. If it is less than 4 millimeters, we are not likely to succeed. It is possible that you may be better off dunking and doing some other techniques, because duct-to-mucosa, what we are discussing just now, may not work out very well in these cases. There are many modifications that people have made, so it's not just one way of doing it, okay? So now let me draw it all over again. So this is jejunum, and I'll make it slightly bigger here. Cut end of the pancreas, and that's the duct. Rest is often it is hidden. So once we have transected the pancreas, that part I'm not discussing here, we would generally put in a feeding tube. That's what we do. But one can use whatever one fancies, but it is a good idea to put in a feeding tube so that you have the whole thing is available. This is the duct. The feeding tube is inside it. Okay. Now coming to the sutures that we prefer to use, we use PDS and 40. Some people use even 5, but we are okay with 4. Now putting the sutures, that's the whole idea. So the whole effort is to anastomose the jejunum, the opening that you would make. I'm just showing you why, then I'll show you how. And the duct, they may not be matching, so it's always good to make a smaller opening initially so that you don't struggle to close that opening, because it should be just about snugly fitting, so that you don't have any leak. Now the first sutures that we put are the boxing sutures. And what are these? You will take a bite right. Initially most of us tend to put those the hemostatic sutures when we are cutting it. So that part is already there. I'm not going for that. You take a bite right across, and I'll just draw the capsule also so that I don't have to do it again. That's the capsule. Suppose that's the capsule. And our principle, as I mentioned, is the suture should either be with the capsule or with the struggling to.
I'm sorry.
So capsule or the duct. So the bite has to be taken from these. There's no point taking a bite through the substance. So the first sutures are called the boxing sutures. And what do we do here? We go right across the anterior and the posterior capsule right through. And then we take a seromuscular suture. We go back right up and we come out. That's one suture for you. We repeat it here. Go right across the capsule and take seromuscular here. Go back in and do it. We may put 2 to 3 on either side. This is what, through both the capsules, right? And seromuscular, back both through the capsules, and we hold it. We'll do the same thing as you can understand here also. So we have these 4 boxing sutures. What they do is they actually would compress the pancreas and they will reduce the tension on the anastomosis here. But that will kind of keep it in hold. Plus it will also, kind of compress it to give it the kind of grip that we're looking for. That's why we call them boxing sutures. It's like you box it so it doesn't disappear. Because this is not something like bowel anastomosis. You are anastomosing a rigid structure, the mobile one. It's always under that shearing strain, right? Now we have done that. Next we do is what we do, which we cannot access later on, is the posterior capsular sutures. Okay, I'll try to use another color so that I can show you something different. Now the posterior. So these are the boxing sutures. I think I'll make them slightly different colored, otherwise we'll get all mixed up. These are the boxing sutures. These are the boxing sutures. And the boxing sutures. They would be tied later, not right now. Okay, and now I'll use the posterior capsule and seromuscular sutures with that. Interrupted, both ends. Always have stay at the periphery before you tie up all of them. These you have put, so it will bring the pancreas closer. And then we do what is called the duct-to-mucosa, which is outside in, inside out, outside in, inside out. And you can tie it and put one in the posterior wall now so that it gets approximated. And we take the posterior layer. Once we have taken it completely, we keep holding on to the corner stitches which we have got here. This is one, this is another. And we try to introduce we already have a feeding tube there, okay? So we cut the feeding tube and push it into the jejunum now. So we have the stent in place. And now it is very simple. We put the anterior layer, then tie up the boxing sutures, and then put the anterior layer with the capsule. So that is kind of 4-layered repair. It is seen in the video of Whipple's that you can share. So to give it a cleaner look, because it is looking quite messy even to me, it looked like this. This we have closed. Usually a stapled one, so this staple is already there. The pancreas is here. The capsule. The duct. So we'll first put the boxing sutures. I'm repeating it so that the rest I will not show, because otherwise it will get completely mixed up. This is how it was. This is pancreas and that's the capsule. So the boxing sutures go through the entire, both the layers. This is also capsule, no? It's all around. Oh, sorry. Looks a little clumsy. I hope you're able to make out. So my suture goes like this. I'll just show you one boxing suture and I won't mess it. Going through the anterior capsule, through the substance, through the posterior part of the capsule, ceromuscular, back I go, through the posterior, through the anterior, and this is where I'll put a stay. And I'll do the same thing here. In I go through the anterior capsule, through the substance, posterior capsule, ceromuscular, and back I go. And I'll put 4 of these. That is 2 on either side. This is what I do. Just to show you. And then I'll close the posterior layer, which is, I'm again showing it, the posterior capsule with the, I'll show you here, with the ceromuscular suture. So it will bring the two together. So when they are together, then we have the duct to mucosa anastomosis being done by holding on the corner sutures, then the posterior layer, and then the anterior layer. After that, I'll have the boxing sutures tied, so the whole thing is compressed. The pancreas is compressed and brought together. So that is why it's called boxing sutures. And then we already have a stent in place. The feeding tube is cut and delivered into the jejunum. So that's how we do the modified Blumgart technique of anastomosis. This boxing makes it tension free. The other thing that it does is it makes it compresses the substance and boxes the pancreas. So this leads to tension-free duct to mucosa. So this is modified Blumgart technique. There are many ways of doing duct to mucosa. It's a stapled jejunal, and you can see the capsule, substance, and the duct where we put in a feeding tube, which will serve as a stent. We'll cut it and push it into the jejunum later on. Okay. We put the boxing sutures as I discussed, and then we start putting the posterior layer. I could have made separate pictures for each. That makes it tension free, and then we do it.
And if it is a soft pancreas or less than 4 mm duct?
Soft or less than 4 mm. This we can dilate sometimes. But if it is soft, it's likely to leak. So a lot of people do dunking, which is like you have more or less the same approach if you're doing it into, or the other option is pancreaticogestrostomy also. You can put it in the stomach. There are various techniques. Here you take the same boxing sutures and kind of take the bowel over the pancreas. So it's like a snake engulfing a frog. So you kind of push it in. Some people like to do a count on the other side. They make an opening and do it under vision. So that can also be done. So that is another topic. So this is duct to mucosa, modified Blumgart's.